Welcome to Mimir, the podcast for ambitious entrepreneurs who want to launch and grow a successful business from day one. I'm your host, Maddie Kelly, and each week I sit down with founders who have been there, done that. We dive into the mindset, strategies, and practical tools you need to turn your vision into a reality. So let's get to work. Hey guys, welcome back to Mimir. I absolutely love being a podcast host. I'm always chasing those conversations that leave me buzzing after, that have me thinking on a philosophical level about entrepreneurship. Something more than just like 5 tips on how to build a business. And I hope you're ready because I have a treat of a conversation for you guys today. In this episode, I sit down with Shahd Asaly, founder of Blue Meets Blue, a slow fashion line that employs refugee artisans and weaves humanitarian values into every stitch. Shahd's journey from a background in psychology and trauma research to building a purpose-driven fashion company quickly opened into something bigger. How business can be a tool for healing, for connection, and for challenging societal narratives. We dive deep into the nuts and bolts of building a mission-driven brand, the lessons she learned from building a sustainable made-to-order line, from supply chains to making intentional choices around values and growth. But we also step back to the broader picture, how overconsumption is tied to loneliness, why so many great products lose their soul when they scale, and what it takes to hold on to your why when the easy path would be compromise. This episode is more than a business chat. It's the kind of conversations that remind me why I do what I do. It's a conversation about the role of entrepreneurs in shaping culture, and a reminder that every choice we make in business has the power to ripple far beyond the bottom line. Shahd, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
I'm super excited to dive into the interview, but I would love for you to just give the audience a little bit of a background into how you build Blue Meets Blue.
Absolutely. So I am the daughter of Syrian immigrants. My family is from Syria, and Syria for me was the place that I went every summer to. So this is where I would have meetings with family and cousins and sleepovers and long summer nights and belonging and identity and culture and language and all of that good stuff and really good food.
When did you move to the US? Like, how old were you?
So I was 2 when I came, and my father came as a medical doctor to finish his training here. So
Cool.
I grew up in Arizona and I lived in Chicago for the majority of my adult life, and now I'm in Florida. But anyway, so Syria was a place we used to frequent every summer so that my family could see their parents and we could connect with relatives and stuff. And then the Civil War hit during the Arab Spring. That was 2011. So we were disconnected from the country for over a decade. We weren't able to go back. It wasn't safe. And unfortunately, during that time, obviously a lot changed in the country. And then a lot of family members passed away. And it was a really, really difficult decade. And then also a lot of refugees were coming to the United States as a result of that ongoing crisis that was happening over there. And so about 2013, 2014, we were seeing a lot of refugees come. And at that time, I was doing a master's in international psychology, and I really wanted to use that to do something that could potentially benefit the refugees that were coming. So I started a clothing line, Blue Meets Blue. And our tagline is where fashion meets humanitarianism. And so it's this clothing line that employs refugees in the US. And I really wanted it to be almost like an art therapy program, but without calling it therapy. And so it kind of combined that psychology part, the design and creativity, and it created these really beautiful, safe spaces for these women to feel like they could be themselves, to have difficult conversations, to be able to work through a lot of difficult emotions while they were actively sewing and working in their skill set. So now they're also feeling empowered because a lot of refugees, when they move, that skill set's not acknowledged and they're not given opportunities, and they don't want handouts. They want to work in their skill set. So it was a really awesome opportunity to be able to blend all of those things together in just one fashion line. And then we also focus a lot on slow fashion within the company for it to be sustainable. So, think of all the big conglomerates and stores of like fast fashion. this is like really, really intentional. It means something to the people making it. It means something to the people that are buying it. And in addition to that, we really focus on not wasting, fabric, but also not being wasteful in general. So a lot of the stuff that we have are made to order. We'll wait for somebody to send in their sizes so the piece actually fits really well, and then there's no waste.
Yeah. I think it's amazing because providing not just a place where people can connect, because I think also like, at any workplace, you want to connect with your coworkers. You think a lot about how much time you spend there, and for it to just be a really fulfilling experience, not just from an emotional perspective, but also from a monetary perspective. I know moving to a new country is really challenging, not just like meeting other new people, but also like finding a way to support yourself if you didn't come there because of a job.
Mhm.
So it's really cool that you're able to provide all of that and then some. But your background is not necessarily like a typical founder pipeline. So I'm kind of
Right.
curious to like dig into your experience and like that transition and leaping from your really amazing academic background to actually like building a business, especially fashion is
Mhm.
very complex. Like there's a
Yeah.
lot to it, especially like logistically. So I'm curious to know how that went for you.
Yeah, so I think I'm a long-term student forever. I'm
Mhm.
finishing up a PhD right now. It's one of those things I'm like, maybe I need to do postdoc after. So I'm still definitely in academia, and I focus a lot on social trauma, collective trauma, and then healing trauma within community because I believe that we need each other to heal.
Totally.
And so it just really comes full circle for me. I feel like when I had done the international psychology part, I wanted to do something and I just didn't find like there was this gap where I'm like, I really like fashion and I really want to start a company, but I don't want it to be like I want it with the values that I want. I want it to be a slow fashion line. Like there were a lot of people that I was about to partner with and they were bringing a whole other dimension into the business of like, okay, but we can get these fabrics from China. And I'm like, but no, that's not what I'm trying to do here. Like we really want to be intentional about the way we source the product, the way, fair wages, all of it.
Mhm.
And so I felt like I had to really take ownership of the whole product for it to go the way that I wanted it to go.
Mhm.
And then we stopped actually in 2019 because I was moving to Florida. And soon after COVID hit, and it didn't make sense to be meeting up in the same rooms anymore. And I had just put it on the back burner. I was like, that was a really great project, did the PhD. I was like completely moved on. But this year, Syria became free and the Assad regime toppled, which was awesome. And so I was able to go back during the summer and I got really inspired to restart the company because I was like, now I want to source the fabric from there. I want to be able to get this stuff from like one of the last remaining brocade factories in Damascus because intentionally the textile industry was hit during the civil war. That's kind of the new thing that we're bringing into it. We're relaunching in January and I'm really excited because I was able to meet the person that makes brocade over there. There's like one or two more people left. And I was able to interview him. And it was also obviously a pretty sad moment because it felt like you're watching history disappear. But the goal is to also sustain the factories back there, bring the product here, and then have the refugees make the items over here. I'm really excited about it.
That is so fantastic.
Mm,
And it seems like it was pretty like a natural transition for you. Like it just
yeah.
felt so obvious, like the right answer that
Mhm,
made getting into fashion pretty simple. But I'm curious,
mhm.
like, did you have any of those moments where you were like, oh my God, I know nothing about, this side of what it
Absolutely.
takes to run a business? And then you're
A
like,
hundred
how do
I
I
still
learn?
have those moments. I feel like it's a constantly like this learning curve. I have that moment
Mm,
when I'm like dealing with social media. I have that moment when I'm dealing with marketing. I'm like, this is the worst thing ever. But, I feel like, and I tell my kids this, I'm like, this is more than an MBA at this point. The things that I have learned, the terminology that I have learned, the spaces that I have been invited to and been privileged to be a part of I don't think I would have gotten from, your typical MBA. It's such a hands-on learning experience that affords you so much. So even though there's things that I'm not learning, I'm not at all like embarrassed to reach out to people that have been through it and be like, I need some guidance and help. And because this is such a mission-driven company, I think people are so willing to help with that push, right? And so I feel like it's just made sense. And I was talking to a friend the other day and I'm like, it's so funny because I feel like I never really planned my life to be this linear in like progression and for it to make this much sense. But every time I go back, I'm like, it's always been about humanitarianism. Whether I'm writing a kid's book about it, or I'm teaching about it in my classrooms, or I'm running a clothing line, it's always been about like the bottom line being empowerment, being humanitarianism, being empathy. So it just all naturally flows and makes sense. And truly, it didn't seem like a weird transition to open a clothing line, even though it's so unrelated to academia.
Yeah. But I think there's something there about like when you know your why,
Yeah.
it's so much easier to make decisions. And
Mhm.
I always think about that phrase or fati, like for the love of fate,
Mm.
where it's one of those things that it doesn't make sense when it's happening, but it's
Yeah.
so clear
Mhm.
later. And I
Yeah.
think that when you really sit back and know your why, it's very easy then to make
Yeah.
decisions, especially in business. Cause I think your story is really interesting. Like, I
Mhm.
think about aspiring entrepreneurs who are potentially listening to this and they're like nervous to start a company because they may or may not have an MBA or they've
Right.
never taken a business course. And they're like, oh, I know it's going to be complicated and I don't know where to start or I don't have all the answers. And I think that if you are clear on like why you're starting your business and you have
Mhm.
a very strong passion that you know that you want to see it succeed, like you will find the answers. You will figure it out.
100%. I also want to piggyback off of that. When you know your why, things flow a lot more easily, right? If you're able to tap into that creative energy, you're able to see things that just automatically feel like this makes so much sense. It's clear. And anytime you deviate away from those values and like the bigger picture of why you're doing what you're doing is when you start losing that creative edge. It's when you start, things are not in sync anymore and it just feels like doors are shutting and whatever. And you're like, oh, okay, I've deviated away from something that was so, the reason why I started this. And so 100% knowing your why is so important.
Yeah, I think, like what if you had decided to go the route with a partner who was like, we'll source stuff from China and you'd just been like, okay,
Right.
well, like that might be the most profitable choice to
Yeah.
make, or like it might be
Right.
the easiest to launch. Like, what would have happened if that
Yeah.
had been like, I'm sure you would have experienced like the universe is funny like that, where it will always, like you said, close doors when it's not the
Mhm.
right direction. And you can see it like, anytime I feel like I've made the right choice, like I've gone a
Mhm.
different direction, I can look to the left and see the doors that were closing. Like even as something as small, like, my boyfriend and I, we moved into a new apartment and sometimes we drive past the old one that I was in and
Mhm.
it's just like not as nice as it used to be. And like, and it's one of those moments where like if we had decided to stay longer than we did, we would
Mhm.
probably experience some hardships now around that place because like the
Right.
universe is now like forcing us out of that experience into the correct path again.
Yeah. I think that's so important, like finding those little mini miracle moments, magic moments
Mm,
within your life and really listening to those signs because I agree with you at some level. It's so much of those little things. Like I've never been to an event or a meeting or and sometimes you don't want to network, right? And sometimes you don't
mm,
want to go to events and it's exhausting and I consider myself pretty extroverted. But I get socially drained and, between meetings and between whatever, you're like, there has never been one event that I have been to that I did not connect with somebody that I reached back out to like maybe 2 years later, and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, now you're my pattern maker," right? Like, crazy stuff. Or the other day, I was connected to someone who apparently is connected to, like, a buyer at a big store, and I'm like, "Oh my god," like and she was just really excited to have that connection and really excited about the story of, like, how can we revive these factories? And it's always so funny because I'm like, I was this close to not going. Like, I was this
yeah.
close to not right? And I'm always like, "Thank God." Like, I'm so happy that I ended up doing whatever I needed to do. And then really
Yeah.
listening to those closed doors and red flags and understanding, like, the sirens that go off
Mm.
and paying attention to those because, like you said, at some level, it's just like, if you don't listen to them, it could be really catastrophic in some way or another. So I think, yeah, I agree with you.
So I also kind of want to dive into how, like, when I think about how you've built your business, which is very like everything is mission driven,
Mhm.
how did that potentially look different in like very very specifically? So like what did you have to design differently like in your supply chain, in your hiring process, like
Mhm.
product strategy? Because your why wasn't an option. It was like the foundation. For anybody listening who like wants to design their business very similarly,
Yeah.
I'm curious to know what you think is like very important or something that you did very intentionally differently.
So I have so many things that I want to say about this. First, I want to say that for anybody that does want to start anything, really it is about just that taking that first step. And I don't want to sound cliche or anything, but really about taking that first step because
Mhm.
I don't know what was that quote, in a year you will have started today. Like
Yeah.
it's very true because I think oftentimes, especially for perfectionists, especially for people that may not have that background, it's like imposter syndrome. It's
Mhm.
all of the everything that will get in your way, and we're our own worst critics. And so, at some level, it's like you are putting yourself in a vulnerable position. You're putting your baby out on social media, and maybe you're not very good at social media. Like, there's so many things, but when I started Blue Meets Blue, I really just took that step, and and I did not have an MBA background. I did not have a fashion background. I've taken design classes and color theory and whatever, but I did not have like the typical background that you would have to build a business. So even though, yeah, I took some workshops and I made a business plan and I did the things, but I was not thinking about supply chain at that time because I was like, this is pretty simple. Like, the why was so powerful for me, and it was really the mission and the foundation of the whole business, that it was like, "Oh, I'm gonna be employing refugee women, and we're making made to order." So I'm not making inventory, I'm not making, and obviously, I've made some pretty expensive mistakes, and I've learned along the way. Like, now I know the first line we had, we did have inventory, and I was like, "That was a really stupid mistake," because then I had to, like, figure out how to get rid of the inventory, and I'm like, this sucks, like, and I don't, and the whole point is that this is sustainable, and I learned from that, and what's exciting is that it was so much better the second time around, and we had so many made to order pieces, and the fabric, like, like, lived longer, you know what I mean? Like, it was blessed almost, like, there were so many pieces that we were able to make, and we were able to design one lady in Chicago, she wanted to design her wedding gown with us, but it wasn't a gown, because part of the whole thing of it being sustainable, she's like, "I want it to be a skirt and a top so that I could wear it often and not just have it
Cool.
be this piece." Yeah, and it was really beautiful. It was so chic, it was so elegant, but I was like, I love that because then even our clients were at the point where they're like, "We get this mission so much. We
Mm,
want to, like, this is," and those are your people. Those are the people that you're gonna find. So yeah, at some level, it's like I wasn't thinking about supply chain. I knew what I was gonna do, and it was like it started off pretty small. Now that I went back to Syria, I'm like, all right, I it just all falls into place at the right time.
yeah.
I really believe that. And the first year we would not have had the capacity that we had this year. Part of it being we didn't have access to the factories that were in Syria. And for me, I really, really want to work with the factories in Syria because that is another source of like empowerment. So I really believe that taking that first step is the most critical one, and it doesn't have to be perfect. And you're going to learn and you're going to make mistakes, and that's fine. Everybody's learning and making mistakes. And so many people that have started businesses did not have a business background. They just had a million followers on TikTok, and all of a sudden
Truly.
they're selling lip gloss. Like, that's literally how it works today.
No, that's so true. And what I also find really fascinating is that, like, especially from a retail perspective, I think one of the biggest challenges with ecom founders is
Mhm.
dealing with inventory. And I think that they feel like that's kind of the only option and that you have to business plan around that eventuality. Whereas because made to order feels scary, where you're like, okay,
Mhm.
well, I'm made to order, but if I don't have orders,
Right.
like, what am I going to do? Whereas, so it's a little bit easier, I think, sometimes to like default into that mentality
Mhm.
that you have to have inventory. But your experience sounds like it was completely different. So I kind of want you to
Mhm.
like double click into that a little bit just to tell people that there is another way to do it
Yeah.
successfully.
Well, I think there's another way if we choose to have another way. If we're going to keep
Mm,
going to the same places and to the same retail shops, and we're encouraging fast fashion production, which we know is pretty awful for the environment, and we know it's really awful for the people that are producing the clothes, and it's quite literally enslaving people. If we're going to choose that, then we're supporting that, right? Like, there is this, it's a cycle. If we choose to
mhm,
make better choices and we choose to go shop local or shop slow fashion, you're also making a conscious effort to, and that's not to say that you're gonna find everything within these slow fashion lines. Like, I'm very aware that it's not all possible, and I'm not trying to romanticize the idea, but we all have a choice to make. And so, like I said, so my customers found me because they were so passionate about it. The lady that designed her wedding outfit, And I've never I didn't even think that far ahead, where she was just like, "I want this to be so sustainable that I am able to wear this skirt multiple times and I'm able to wear this shirt multiple times." And I was like, "Oh my gosh, like, I'm so inspired that you did that." And so I think your people will find you. It's just
Mm,
truly at this point, like, the why, when you have the product, and this is what they say, product, product, product. When you have the product, I think that speaks for itself and people will appreciate the story behind it, especially if the story is powerful. So for this next collection, the clothes that we have are made to order, but we also partnered with Brocade Clutch Factory over there that made our brocade clutches. So the inventory for the clutches we have. We also have clutches for these like beautiful wooden purses with mother of pearl
mm,
inlay. And they're
wow.
all handmade, and I have the videos that I'm gonna be uploading on Instagram of how they made them. And this is like cutting out the middleman to an extreme. I literally went into the wood shop and I'm like, oh my God, I see the cherry trees that have been like, it's amazing, right? That's not an experience that I would have ever had. And I have access to the country just because I happen to, travel there and I have family there. And I was able to reach out to people and partner with them, but it all happened when it was supposed to happen.
Mhm.
I think we get really scared because the goal always is scalability and money and success, and that's what success means to us, right? I think with a mission-driven company, you can't cut those corners, and you cannot, even if it's tempting, right? Like it could be really tempting to work with somebody in China and pay $2 a yard for fabric. But then, if your bottom line is human dignity and empowerment, then what's the mission, right?
Yes.
And so, at some level, our why, I think, has protected us from feeling that urgency. Our why
Mhm.
of slow fashion has protected us from feeling a need to scale, a need to show success in your typical capitalist, mentality. And success for me is when one of the artisans comes and says that she's got enough money to buy her kids new school supplies and a new uniform and she doesn't have to wait for hand-me-downs from the community, right? So I think it's those moments that keep us doing what we're doing.
I'm really glad that you brought this up because I think this is really, really interesting. I am excited to see, like, my fingers are crossed that the market is going this way because I think we're starting to see it across different industries. Like, I think you see this in farming a lot where it's like we're really moving back to the way that we used to do things more
Mhm.
ethically and that's healthier.
Right.
And when I think about fashion, I think a lot of people are really starting to zero in on like the unethical values and the waste and just like and it always brings me back to this question of like how do we define success.
Right.
And I think particularly like, one of the multiple reasons I'm obsessed with entrepreneurialism is I really believe that we have the ability to shape the future. Like if all of these small businesses are having the same ideas, it means that the market is also following us. In
Exactly.
theory it should create a ripple effect that like
Yeah.
allows us to change our environment.
Yeah.
And I think half of that really has to come down to how do we redefine success, especially as entrepreneurs? Like, I was thinking about this the other day. How do we untangle the desire to own like 100% of the market that causes us to want to grow and scale as fast as humanly possible, which inevitably leads to quality issues?
Mhm, mhm.
It's always this interesting dichotomy to me where you see like incredible products in an early stage and then eventually when the
Of
company
course.
grows, yeah, no matter what industry
Yeah.
or no matter what product you're selling, it always like loses its value later
Yeah.
down the line the bigger it gets. And so it's like how as entrepreneurs do we untangle
Mm.
this web of like desire for what we've been told is successful.
Yeah.
And I think like listening to what you're saying, it all again comes back to is how important is your mission to you and
Yeah.
how well do you connect with it?
Right, and how compromisable is your identity at some level? Because, if you start
Mm,
off with something and you're like, "This is it, like, I'm gonna stick to this," then how much are you willing to compromise? And how much of yourself are you willing to sell because this is what success means in our society? And I'm gonna tap into, like, the sociological part of my brain for a second.
mm, please.
what you're saying and what you're describing is what in sociology we call like this alienation that ends up happening with people that are working in these like big products like lines. Think of big product that they're working on a product that they are not able to afford, right? So now they're alienated from whatever it is that they're making, and you can see that in the quality, and you can see it like it's so different when you're having a startup and you're doing something that you're like really passionate about, and the people that are working are putting blood, sweat, and tears, but it's something that they really value, versus you're hiring people, you're not paying them a good wage. It's a complete capitalist market, right? And then you've got people that are on this like conveyor belt doing what they need to do, but they're completely alienated from the product by way of not being able to afford it, by way of not being paid properly, by way of the system the way it is. And so you see it in the product, right? You see it in the effect. You see it as the whole thing just kind of starts to decline. And then, like you said, for your earlier point of a ripple effect for markets, we kind of, and I'm not saying that it's any better, because I've seen documentaries about it not being that better. Bigger stores will start responding to their customer. They want to please the customer, right? So if a customer is
Mhm.
like, I care about the environment, they're going to start doing we'll give you 15% if you come and recycle your clothes in our store. And I mean, is it really getting recycled? Is it still ending up in a landfill? Yes, but they're listening at some level,
They're
right?
trying.
They're trying. I don't know if they're trying. I think it's just like, do you think that, and the documentaries that have come out, I really recommend The True Cost. I don't know if you've seen it. It's an excellent documentary about the true cost of fashion and, what it does to people around the world. Excellent documentary. And then there's another one called Buy Now. I think they're both on Netflix. And it's also kind of what happens to all of these products that we consume, and they're ending up washed on the shores and, ending up in landfills and completely toxic to the environment. Fascinating documentaries, very much recommend them. But yeah, I think if if the customers and the consumers are willing to push the market to move in that direction, the market will move in that direction because they want people to buy stuff. So if that means pushing them to be more ethical, then that's kind of something that we have to do collectively.
Yeah. And I kind of want to pick your brain too, because you're the right person, I guess, to ask this question. But when I think about like the intention that somebody has, right? Like you think about a company like, I don't know, Coca-Cola, for example, or like Nike, for example.
Mhm.
They wanted to make a good pair of running shoes.
Right.
And they started that way. And then like I think about the employees who work there, like they, it's the just do it mindset or whatever. I don't know what kind of slogan is on their internal market, whatever. But I think about like the bigger you get, the more narrow, like as an employee, your focus is, right? Like they probably have people dedicated to one very small portion of like marketing, for
Yeah.
example.
Right.
Whereas a small business owner just like does what they can do that day with 24 hours
And
and
wears
they're
a
saying,
million hats and is the one that's doing literally everything. Yeah, 100%.
yes, exactly. And then the people, as like you narrow, as you get bigger, like you said, you're not connected to the product anymore because
No, you're
it's
alienated from it too. Yeah.
100%. Like, where, I guess, like, how do we, is there a way for us to maintain that level of drive and passion behind the product at scale?
That's a really great I mean, and the thing is you see it in all industries too, like, it's affecting every sector, like, look at medicine right now. The amount of medical practices that have been bought up by private equity, and then you go to that medical practice and you're like, "I don't feel like I even have a relationship with the doctor anymore." The doctor
Mhm,
is now being employed, and I don't know, I'm not getting the same quality or the same service, and everybody's just kinda doing a job, and everybody's alienated from everything, and I think that
mhm.
that is a general push across all sectors. And so I don't know what's, and then with AI and all of these different layers that we're adding onto it, I think people are starting, like you said, whether it's food or clothing, they're starting to realize that we've lost that connection, and that feels really disturbing, right? It feels disturbing on so many levels. And so I don't know if you can have that same impact when it scales and it becomes like really big, because the reality is you're gonna have to be, unless you're like replicating yourself and cloning yourself, or there are people out there that are as mission driven and like really connect with the why as much as you do. The reality is no one's going to take care of your house the way you take care of it. No one's going to take care of your baby the way you take care of it. No one's going to take care of your business the way you take care of it. So I don't know if there's an answer to that, but I do feel like this is across all sectors, and it's a really disturbing trend.
Yeah, and I think, like you said, it all comes back to connection, and I think that's what's so cool about entrepreneurship is it really brings that
Yeah.
connection back, and it's what drives me to love entrepreneurship and to talk about it and
Yeah.
to give it a platform because I think that there's that to me, like that desire to bring back the connection, like as a founder to your product, to your customers, bring your customers closer together, and
Sure.
then like bring your customers closer to your mission and bring like awareness to your mission. All of
Yeah.
that I think is
Yeah.
so fascinating.
Yeah.
And to me, it feels like kind of the rage against this desire to be so disconnected, especially like in today's world of so much
Yeah.
technology.
Be so disconnected and be so focused on consuming so much. Like, we have so much. We really do. I mean, you look around the world, people do not have as much access to the amount of things that we are afforded. It's truly this, it's people come to the West and they're just like, I don't know what to do at a supermarket. Like, this is too many things, right? The abundance mentality slash like just keep consuming and buy more, buy more, buy more. It makes people unfortunately feel like they need to get this huge haul from Shein or Temu or whatever. And you're just like, it's sad because there is a disconnect, right? There is a disconnect between, even for the people who know that it's awful for the environment, even for the people who know it's awful for other human beings, there's this disconnect because it's like, well, I need to buy this because everybody else is buying it, or because I want to have, a million different, shades of jeans. I don't know. And so it's really sad to see that disconnect. And that's why in Blue Meets Blue, like, we really focus on that idea of community. Like, it's community between the people that are the refugee artisans that are with us, and also the people that are volunteering, the people that are working. We have a level of community, and I think that when we move away from that level of connection with human beings, we kind of lose ourselves. And same part of the purpose too, like you said, is having the customers understand the story. Your customer will always understand if you have a mission driven purpose. Like, people can tell when you're genuine about it. People can tell if it's something that really matters to you. And I will say, probably some of the greatest success stories or orders or whatever that we have received were because people really connected to the mission, were because people were like, I see what you're doing. It matters so much. It's incredible. How can I help? Right. And by the way, helping was not always ordering stuff, right? Like, I've had people that have called when I was in Chicago, I'm closing down my atelier and I want to donate the sewing machines, right? I have a whole bunch of like art textbooks, and I heard your interview and I just want to give you these art textbooks that maybe you'll use for inspiration, like random stuff that you're like, it's really beautiful because you'll see people wanting to connect. You'll see people wanting to reach out and do something in the way that they know how. And that's also beautiful.
Yeah. And I'm curious to get your perspective as like someone who's deeply knowledgeable about collective trauma. Do you think
Mhm.
that our consumerism and like our desire to over consume
Mhm.
is like a result of like a void we're trying to fill
Mm.
as
Like an
a society?
intergenerational scarcity mentality mindset from like the Great Depression. I don't know.
I
No,
don't
I
know.
think
I don't know.
I think it's just in response to, and this is why I really recommend that documentary By Now. It really walks you through like the psychological part of the brain of like how you're being primed by all of these subliminal messages around you to keep buying, right? Like, you don't even pay attention. The way that they market things, the way that they put certain things on the shelves, for kids to see at the bottom and for adults to see on like shelf 3. Like, there are so many ways that they have figured this system out, right? Or like, you'll be in Times Square and you've got all these ads flashing at you and you're like, I do need lip gloss. Like, yeah, right? So it's just, or the commercials that come up in between whatever you're watching and you're like, yeah, I'm going to DoorDash a burger right now because suddenly I'm starving. And so there's all these messages that we are consuming, that we are absorbing through our social media, through our phones, through our screens, through just being outside and walking. We are disconnected from nature. We're disconnected from each other. We're disconnected from things that really matter. Think about, honestly, even politics. Like, we're disconnected from empathy. We're disconnected from seeing other people as human. And so that does something, I think, to your heart and to your brain. and that disconnect makes it really easy to just ignore bigger issues and bigger situations and constantly serve yourself, right? Like there is this also very selfish individualistic tendency that we have, unfortunately, in the West, of like, I need it now, right? I'm the impulsive buying, the impulsive way that we respond to people. It's become this extreme like desire of feeding your own ego and your own self, and it's constant. It is constant. And you're afforded that luxury. You're able to do that.
Yeah, 100%. Okay, I think that's really, I think this is like probably such a fascinating conversation, like one of the most interesting I've had in a long time. So
It's
thank you for
awesome.
that. But I want to ask you one more question before we close.
Mhm.
Uh, I think a lot of entrepreneurs are going to be really inspired by this conversation,
Mhm.
especially with the way that the market is going. You know, you really want to bake purpose into your business from day one. And if somebody's thinking about like building their business plan, for example, what are some of the things that you would recommend for them to really be like conscientious of at the stage in
Yeah.
order to allow them to be able to do that successfully?
I mean, I would say, what does your product do, like, that other products don't do, right? And that's what's your niche, like, thing? What is the thing that sets you apart from other people? Because we don't need probably more lip gloss and lipstick, but does, like, your lipstick have this extra, I don't know, thing that keeps your lips looking young and takes away the lines? Okay, cool, I'll buy that, right? What is gonna set you apart from somebody else? And then before you launch, obviously, your product has to be great. It has to be a really good product because you launch a crappy product and people buy it and then they're like, I'm never coming back, right? And then if you are a mission driven entrepreneur and there is that mission behind, really amplify it. Like use that to spread awareness, use that to talk about. One of the reasons I started Blue Meets Blue, and it was probably the main reason, was to stop all the stereotypes and misconceptions about refugees. And, at that time there was so much Islamophobia and racism and all of this stuff. And we don't want immigrants coming to the country. We don't want refugees coming to the country. They're taking our jobs. They're living off our tax dollars. I'm like, that's not true. They have to pay back their plane ticket after 6 months of arrival. It's really not true. They don't want handouts and they want dignity. So one of the main things for me was this. How do we change the stereotypes? And so I'm like, I'm going to amplify the message by focusing on that, and your people will find you.
Yeah. So it's like really leaning into the why. Like if we go back to the lip gloss example, like if you started it because you are super passionate about like the environment or something like that. And so all
Yeah.
of your packaging is made from sustainable products and like even down to the way that you formulate your product, like it's
Right.
all like incredibly sustainable, like leaning into that to amplify your message and like I think maybe use really like sit deep into your
Mhm.
why and be able to make sure that it permeates every single aspect of your business. Like, even if that's like a column in a spreadsheet that's like, where does this tie into the why? And like, how does that relate? I think
And
you're right.
the storytelling is so important because I feel like right now, again, with AI, social media is taking this like 20 steps back where people are now using like ChatGPT to write their content. And I get that it's helpful, but like people can tell. So there's been so many accounts that like I'll follow and I'm like, oh shoot, like I don't want to read what ChatGPT wrote. I was connecting with you because of you. I was connecting with you because you were the one selling your brand. It was your story. It was genuine, right? So really lean into the storytelling part. People follow other humans because unfortunately, this is one of the way that we connect. We connect through our phones. And then the other thing too is use that to amplify the message. Do the storytelling in the background and like make it, engaging for the audience, but be really genuine and authentic. And I want to say one more thing. I think there's been so much advice that I'm like, this is really bad advice online. And I want to say about like and I don't even really know a lot about this, but I know the terminology, so I'm just gonna just word vomit right now. Like drop shipping and printify and like, start a Shopify store. This is so easy. This is gonna make you $1 million in like 30 days. Don't do it. Don't do it. No one's gonna wanna buy like a printed shirt, like, or like some tumbler that I can get from Amazon. Like it's just, I don't understand why. And there's all these people that are like, I'm gonna sell you a course on how you can printify drop ship 30 days. You're gonna have $10 million. I'm like, oh my gosh, like people are buying into this. I can't believe it.
Yeah. I think that there's no such thing as a quick fix.
No.
And in my mind, I think you're making a really excellent point that technology is not the end. Like, you need to be using technology to service the end goal, which is to serve your customer and to like bridge the connection of you and your customers. And like, if I just think that this is a really good call out, because even for myself, I love ChatGPT. I use it every day.
Yeah.
But I think it's a good reminder that like we need to remember that it's a tool to help us, not
Correct.
to
And that's
and
what's happening. It is this replacement. Like, there is absolutely nothing wrong with, work smarter, not harder, right? Like, there's nothing wrong with using it to like, okay, boost whatever. Like, sometimes you need that, like professional emails, right? Or announcements or whatever. But at some level, it's like if I'm coming to your page for like content about, I don't know, like inspiration and poetry, and I'm used to you giving me that inspiration, now I can tell that it's been like auto-generated and I'm not connecting with you anymore. And if I'm going to be putting AI stuff on my feed, now our AIs are talking to each other. Like, what is this living? Like, this is so weird. And I mean, you want to talk about disconnection. Like, not only are we talking to each other on a screen, but now on top of it, our AIs are talking to each other. It doesn't get more bizarre.
Yeah, it's truly like futurism.
Yeah. And I see
like
this
a
in the classroom too. And I tell my students, I teach social psychology at the university. I'm like, please don't use ChatGPT. I can tell, like, I can tell the dashes, I can tell the words, like, don't use it. But I'm like, my friend was like, well, she's so funny. She goes, why don't you grade their papers with ChatGPT? I'm like, first of all, that's insane. They're going to write with their papers with ChatGPT, and then I'm going to use ChatGPT to correct their papers. Like, what is the point of education at this point? It's insane. And that's just the way the world is. That's where it's moving, and it's scary.
Yeah. And so I think it's a really good call out. And like, I'm glad that I think this is such like a great way to bookend the episode, is it's like all comes back to the human element and the connection of that. Like, how do we use our brains and our drive to amplify others and to do better and reestablish connection, which is incredibly important, especially now.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. This has been so much fun. I have
Thank you.
really enjoyed myself.
Yeah, this was a really awesome conversation. Thank you for that.
That's a wrap on today's episode. If you feel called to support this podcast, please give it your honest rating or leave a review. And thank you so much for listening. You can find all the links to connect with Shahid in the show notes. And if you want more founder wisdom, community, and behind the scenes, come hang out at mamir.ink. See you guys next week.